Hello Mayans and welcome back to my channel. If you're part of that 80% who haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the little notification bell because then you'll be notified when I upload new content. And of course, as always, my socials are also down below. Today, I have a very, very special guest. I know I've said that before, but today it really is a super special guest.
I am your surgery sister. Sister!
This is Andrea Zekas, and what do I mean by my surgery sister? It means that she was actually the patient right after mine that Dr. Bowers operated on for our bottom surgeries.
You made me wait.
That's
yes,
right.
You made me wait. Just like a good sister at times.
What I am is the older twin. Sisters from different misters. I'm sorry I made you wait. There was less material to work with. It just so happens that our hospital room featured two powerhouse transgender advocates. Why don't you explain what it is that you do?
At the time when we were together, I was just some cartographer person. I ended up finding my voice afterwards as an advocate. People who are trans shouldn't be discriminated against when it comes to housing and employment. I do support the Equality Act. And I went from that to work with groups like HRC, Basic Rights Oregon, National Center for Transgender Equality, ACLU of Alaska. I'm just one of those people who just goes in and out of states and fights for rights for trans people wherever I go.
She's an equality rights gun for hire.
Some people might know that I supported Bernie Sanders in 2016.
I want you to join me in welcoming the next President of the United States, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Today I'm just with Maya.
Now, somewhere along all this advocacy work, you also learned to do some circus things, right?
I wanted to conquer that fear of heights. Well, I saw in an ad in the paper that you pay $50, I'll teach you how to stilt walk in 2 hours.
Did you learn in 2 hours?
Yes, I did. I was the first one to get up. I was also the first one to fall down.
Get up and go down.
Ooh.
The reason I brought Andrea on is because we also had significantly different surgery experiences. My surgery experience was pretty smooth. I didn't have very many complications, although I did have one, which I actually will talk about as well. Andrea, I remember at the time, had quite a few, and I remember feeling really bad about that. There wasn't a lot I could do about it at the time, but I remember hearing about all these things that were happening, and I thought it might be useful to all of you to hear about some of those. What can happen when surgery doesn't go exactly as planned?
My results after surgery were pretty fantastic. I was really happy when the doctor comes in and says I was able to get you 7 inches of depth and
I remember that.
And
wow!
You have a top-notch JJ. Looks great on the inside, outside. It's just like just let everything kind of heal down. Got through everything through flying colors. In that moment, I was trying to be as good as I can to try and be as diligent and listening to the doctor's advice and listening to other people's advice about what I can do with my body.
Always a great thing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, at the time you have to dilate 3 times a day. It was going well. I was getting some depth. Everything was fine. And then I was out to dinner with my folks. When I went to the restroom to actually use the restroom, something popped. I saw something come out down on the other end and there was like a little, looked like it was red, peeping out my vagina. What is that? You know, I kept on dilating and just trying to push that thing back up. And every single time I would push it back up, it would come down further. The skin graft that was further up into my vaginal cavity had come loose and had started to fall out. The best way I can describe it was old man scrotum coming right out of my vagina. Yeah, it was like
old man scrotum prolapsing from your vagina.
I didn't know anything, so I talked to my doctor about it and she advised me to be like, just push it further up there and trying to get the stick, hold things further up there. And I would do that, and every single time I did that, it would just come down again. I thought I had it stuck up there and it'd come down again. I just became really depressed. This thing that I was really hoping for had broken. Try to hold things in at the same time and try and do other things. It was just this big soup of stuff coming down there. 12 days after I had left California, I had to go back to California.
I remember when all of that happened, I remember feeling crushed for you. It can't be a good feeling when you've sacrificed quite a lot to get to that point in your life. That starts happening and there's got to be a lot of fear that it's not going to work, that, you know, that somehow you're going to lose this thing that you fought so hard for.
I had thought this is what I had done wrong. I was blaming myself and I took it really hard. Talked to Dr. Bowers about it and she had said, this is like, you know, the other people who have had this experience, the people who have been diabetic, you know, they have more complications when it comes to things that is like, things to adhere. And I was just like, am I diabetic too? Well, I took tests and I found that wasn't the case. So when I got to see the doctor about it, she took me back, looked at what was there, ended up just cutting it out. She explained to me that afterward, for some part of my body inside, there's scar tissue that's going to heal over. My healing process was going to take longer. It's not uncommon. There are folks who get surgery and have to deal with external scar tissue that heals over time.
It's also a complication I've heard happen to cisgender women after they get things like hysterectomies. You told me a joke that if you ever were to write a book, that the title would be, I'm going to use the C word, the first cut was the deepest.
About a few years after surgery, surgery, I was contacted by a publisher who wanted to add my story to an anthology of different stories of people who've had scars. It's called Scars. It was published in 2015, and the title of my story is At the Women's Table.
It is something that can happen to you and something that you have to keep in mind, and not to try to dissuade you from getting to surgery. For everybody, there's always one or two things you have to deal with after the surgery. It is something that is a big deal.
Only after that happened did I realize what was the issue. I found out that I was allergic to the lubricant I was using for dilating.
Who knew that can happen, by the way, first of all?
Because at one point I had used one that was even for like sensitive, because there was some kind of preservative in it I was having problems with. I used it and I had to go to the emergency room. There's nothing like having your mother stop the people at the ER from sticking a speculum in your body, because she's just like, that vagina's brand new, you're not sticking that in there, you know?
It still has that brand new vagina smell.
I found out that I needed to go really natural with my lubricants. I was using straight up coconut oil and it worked just fine. And now I'm using a product called Sliquid, and I've been using Sliquid ever since.
I gotta file that one away. I actually still use coconut oil myself.
My issue sometimes with using coconut oil is sometimes if I'm like out camping someplace, it will just instantly turn into water, and then So lubricant I was using was keeping me from having the healing process happen. I talked to my mother about it, and she said, I have the same problem with the same lubricant. So it's kind of cool to have
matching vaginas with your mom. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. I ended up turning into my mother.
Twinsy vaginas.
It is so important to, if there is family history, to know what your family history is. I needed to have my mom there to tell me what was going to work for her and give me her advice, what was going to be the best thing for me and my body. And that made all the difference.
It's actually really important to have cisgender allies for a lot of different reasons, and that's just one of them. To share this kind of information with other women.
It made me believe what those commercials were like, where people were talking about their feminine hygiene.
Like your mom.
Yes, it's like,
honey,
yes.
You just had those days when you're not feeling not so fresh.
Exactly.
That's actually kind of
so
sweet
you're
in a weird way.
having conversations about lubricants.
And by the way, I've met her parents. They're wonderful. I had a complication as well, where the stitches of my labial lips kind of met down by my vagina. All those stitches are dissolvable, so they started to dissolve on me. You're supposed to keep it as dry as possible, but you know what? It's a wet area. Things are going to get wet, and sometimes things like this happen, which was that the stitches holding my labial lips together started to come apart. And let me tell you, that is scary as shit, because you can look in there and all you see is like raw meat. Very frightening to see.
Do people still look at you and see raw meat?
Wow. No raw meat in that area at all.
Beef, it's what's for dinner.
Maybe, but it's not what's for sex. Just like yourself, you know, I actually then contacted Dr. Bauer's office. What I did was I took a picture of it and I sent it to her. And a little while later, I got a response back. And basically, it is a well-known complication. In fact, it's so well-known that I believe it appears in the standard list of complications that she gives you. And I had read that, so I kind of knew what the answer was going to be. Basically, there is nothing to be done in that case. What happens is you just wait for that scar tissue to heal over. At first, it looks nasty, but at that time, you also kind of have a frankenpussy. You're not gonna be having sex with it at that point in time anyway. What probably happened, she thought, was that when I moved from the number 1 dilator to the number 2 dilator, because it demands more of that area in terms of stretching, and it was right there down by my vagina. And you know, you're doing that, like you say, 3 times a day. The stitches just popped. I just had to wait, and it took, I forget how long to heal over. It took some time.
I went out and saw Dr. Bowers a year after surgery for me, and got her to see what it looked like. It turned out looking just fine. An issue, a complication can be overcome and turn into a really fabulous outcome.
I actually also went to see a gynecologist. She put the speculum inside me. She looked around. She goes, oh, you had a very good result. I'm like, well, thank you. It is something that is a miracle of modern science as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, folks like Maya talking to folks about it.
I just talk about my vagina all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what I get accused of. You know, you are obsessed with your vagina.
That's lip service.
If it's good, it's lip service. We can both say that our results have been spectacular.
It made me think differently about procedures I wanted to have done. After I had that experience, I didn't want top surgery. Surgery is still a big deal. I wanted to be healthy and happy, and I do whatever I can to do that, and I couldn't be happier.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our respective stories of complications we had with our surgery. If you've ever experienced any complications with your surgeries, or just have any question about bottom surgery, please put it in the comments down below. I'll do my best to answer those questions.
We'll get to the bottom of that.
As I said before, as always, my socials are down below as well. And please, if you can spare a dime, consider supporting me through my Patreon. And on that note, please like my video by hitting the thumbs up, please share my video, and please subscribe. And see you around the interwebs.